Welcome back. President Trump is pausing his Project Freedom as he describes, quote unquote, great progress toward a potential deal with Iran. That has markets on fire this morning. Oil prices are plummeting and stocks are higher. The president wrote this on Truth Social. We have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. The president continues to say the fighting part of the operation is largely over. He sent a letter to Congress to formally tell Congress that the hostilities with Iran have, quote, terminated. He also told me that the war was close to ending. He told me this 2.5 weeks ago.
Well, you keep saying was. Is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country.
Joining me now is Florida Congressman Carlos Gimenez, a member of the House Armed Services and Homeland Security Committees. And Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. Can you give us a sense of what that letter that the president sent you and your colleagues said in terms of the hostilities with Iran?
Well, I haven't read the letter, but I'm sure the letter says that the hostilities at the Project Epic Fury is over. The shooting part of this war is over, and so trying to give us an indication that it is, and so it kind of puts to rest the War Powers Act, even though the president, and I agree with him, thinks that particular act is unconstitutional.
Well, here's the Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday on this. Watch.
The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation.
Congressman, once we are on the other side of this, what will your priorities be in Congress?
I mean, in terms of this particular conflict in Iran, is that Iran can never, ever be a nuclear power. Look, Iran is committing acts of piracy right now. If they were a nuclear armed nation, they would commit these acts of piracy with impunity. They'd be able to charge any toll that they wanted, attack any ship, seize any ship that they wanted because they're a nuclear power. And so the president is absolutely correct in the strategy. They can never, ever have a nuclear weapon. We have to assure that at the end of this negotiations, if they're successful, that we have a very robust inspection program that we can inspect whenever, however, at time of our choosing their programs to make sure that they are complying with that. And also that the Strait must remain open all the time without any tolls and without any acts of piracy from Iran. That's the least that we need from this negotiations, and that they won't be funding terrorism around the world anymore, and that they can rejoin the world of nations. And so that's what I expect from these negotiations. That to me is the bottom line. I mean, I won't accept anything less.
Well, I mean, look, it was much talked about yesterday that the Secretary, Marco Rubio, appeared with a map of Cuba behind him during a key meeting of Southern Command yesterday. The Secretary is expected to discuss Cuba and concerns about religious freedom across the world when he visits Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican. He'll be there tomorrow. The Secretary told reporters at the White House yesterday that the status quo in Cuba is unacceptable. Watch this.
The problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo, and we'll be addressing it, but not today.
And Congressman, the president said that he's prepared to, quote unquote, take over Cuba almost immediately on the way back from Iran, and signed an order to tighten Cuba's sanctions. Now, you're the only Cuban-born congressional member. What do you want to see happen here?
I want to see a regime change. I want to see the change in Cuba, because they do pose and have posed a threat to the security of the United States. And the Secretary is absolutely right. The regime is, they're communists, and he's right. The only thing worse is an incompetent communist. But really, you can't blame them because the system doesn't work at all. And so they need change. Look, the Cuban people have demonstrated around the world, especially in this country, that we're a very successful, group of immigrants. The only place that Cubans aren't successful is in Cuba. And so we need to change, and we need to get rid of this threat that's 90 miles from our shores.
And in terms of your work right now, Congressman, I mean, what do you want to see in terms of policy? You're working on a reconciliation bill, right? You need to continue to fund ICE and Border Patrol. And then you've got the midterms right around the corner. Are you expecting to lose seats in the House for the midterm elections this year?
I was, but I'm not.
Now you're not.
And I'll tell you why. I think that no, I'm not. And I'll tell you why. Because we need to go on offense against the Democrats. Can you imagine what oil prices would be today if Joe Biden were actually in office and the Straits of Hormuz were being closed by Iran? We're now energy independent and we're energy dominant. Under him, we were energy dependent. And so the world would be in a much worse place if Joe Biden and the Democrats were in power. We had 9% inflation rate. Our inflation rate is not down to where we want it to be, but it's sharply down than it was during the Biden years. And so a lot of this stuff was created during the Biden administration and following Democrat policies of this, wild spending that they went on, and they'll return to that if they go back into power. We as Republicans need to tell the American people exactly what to expect from the Democrats because they've already shown it to us. And I expect the economies to start improving. And once this war is over, gas prices are going to drop like a rock. Well,
I suspect the redistricting issues are a main focus as well for you and your colleagues. I mean, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a new congressional map that could give Republicans up to 4 additional House seats. The GOP-controlled legislature approved that map just before it was signed into law. But Democrats are upset about it. They say the voting rights groups say it's illegal and that it violates voter-approved anti-gerrymandering standards, Congressman. A lawsuit's already been filed. So what do you want to say about all this rewriting of the maps going into the midterms?
Look, I didn't like rewriting any of the maps. I think it should be done once every 10 years. But once you start it, then once that ball starts to roll, then you can't stop it. And it started with New York last cycle. And so it continued in this cycle. And by the way, I'm very happy with the Supreme Court ruling about the Voting Rights Act and the gerrymandering that was done in order to apparently comply with it, which was unconstitutional. Now we need to get the maps right that comply with the Constitution of the United States, and those maps have to be changed. And so I'm fine with what Florida did. We'll see how it works out in the courts, but I have a feeling that the maps that were drawn here in Florida are going to comply with the Constitution of the United States.
Well, look, the Democrats push back on everything from the Republicans, right? And everything against President Trump, from, the redistricting to economic policy to the president's ballroom. We're about to talk with your colleague, Ro Khanna. What do you think is most important for Ro Khanna to address?
I think, the most important things that we have to address is the economy right now. I mean, it's always the economy. And so we have to make sure, that's what we need to do. And I think that the president and what he's doing in Iran is going to stabilize the economy. I guess the oil prices are going to drop. We are producing oil at record levels. We are now energy dominant. And I heard your segment before that we should be looking at 4% growth. And I think that's what we need to be. That's what the Democrats and the Republicans need to focus in on. Everyday issues that affect the American citizen.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work on all of the above. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
Good seeing you, too.
Carlos Gimenez. We'll be right back.